And we're live. Okay, excellent. So I'd like to welcome everybody to our first episode of our new show. We're calling this the Champ Chat. It's where I'm going to grab champions who we've interviewed them before in the Meta Lab, but I'm kind of focusing it on this show on bringing champions, winners from ROCs, nationals, and world champions to our show to chit chat about what got them, their championship, how they play in the game, how the game relates to them, and we of course open up the question to a few of our fans. We always post our guests. We're going to be posting our guests on Facebook, so when you get a chance, follow us on Facebook and post any questions when we put up the post of what do you want to ask our next Champ Chat guest. We're in the middle of lining up next week's, and we're going to go from there. So this week we have a brand new winner, to say the least. Last week, was it last week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Last week was Majestix Regional Regional ROC, and we had the winner, Aaron Cantu, on live with us. Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. There's no acento, so.
Well, it's funny, you were mentioning to me a little while ago that you and me have both been pronouncing Patrick's last name wrong for weeks and never been corrected.
Yeah, like months, really.
Yeah, since he's won. Now, I want to first ask you a few questions with regards to your training regime.
Okay.
What do you do to practice? What gets you ready for more competitive tournaments? Do you have a practice team? And how do you practice? Let's start with that. And the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't really practice, but I do talk a lot of clicks online and things like that, or every once in a while text message with some buddies. But I get a lot of, like, when there's big events coming. There'll be the guys like Frank Martinez, who I went with. Um, he'll text message me like, "What do you think of this team or this figure?" And then we kind of chat via text about it. But at current, we don't really have any playtest groups, so there's not a lot of like really competitive play where I live. So it's kind of hard to get practice games in, I guess. And generally, I don't like to because I get discouraged. Like I remember, was it 2013? I test played a team um, one time and I lost with it, and I was like, this team's terrible. I'm not playing it. And then I ended up playing it anyways at the 2013 ROC West Coast thing, and I got third. So, but I almost didn't play that team. So test playing for me is kind of a fickle, fickle thing.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you talk a lot about Heroclix, texting and otherwise. Is one of those would happen to be your podcast? You want to take a second to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was shortly after the War of Light Month One event, locally here. I was approached by a friend, and he had been doing a podcast for a little bit that he stopped when he had a baby, and so we just revamped it, restarted it. It's called Two Clicks from KO, and yeah, it's a weekly show. Right now we're recording every Sunday. We just posted up this week's show. It's episode 31, so that's 31 weeks straight that we've done a podcast. Um, and yeah, it's we try and blend a casual and meta on our show. Um, we're still working out stuff. Always taking feedback and things like that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's a lot of where I do my talking, there and on Facebook.
Excellent. Now, before we get too much into the 1K, are there any other tournaments that you'd say, like nationals, worlds? Have you competed in any of the other non-ROC events? I know you mentioned another ROC as well.
Yeah, I went to Gen Con last year, but that was my first time going to the World Championships. I used to compete at the Wizard World events in LA, Los Angeles. Um, Man, I don't even know how many years ago that was.
Those were a long time ago. I don't even think they had
Yeah,
cards and figures yet.
no, they didn't. So I used to do those. I did pretty much anything in California, but last year was the first year I really traveled to go play. Um, I went to Gen Con, and that was it. I didn't do too well there though.
Mhm. Now, comparing the regional, which is supposed to be one of the bigger ROC events, like there'd be Dragon, or I guess not Dragon Con this year, but the big ROC final
Hmm.
event, and then the regional and then the super qualifier. Where does the regional compare in excitement and size to of the worlds or nationals?
Well, I I've, I don't know. It's tough to say because I have my perception of it. I believe that the regional event last weekend had more players in the main event than Origins did last year, the national U.S. Nationals, by just a little bit, but I believe it was more. So as far as attendance goes, I'd say there was more players. This regional did have a lot of high level players. Had Kevin Afruz and Justin Jimenez, who were both part of the three versus three world champion team. Jake Williams was there. Chris Flores was a Mexican national champion. Nick Peterson was a Canadian national champion. Rob Berzell and Patricia Lamb, who have both been big name players for a long time, they were both there. Um, there was a lot of tough competitors there. There's also a lot of guys who are there who they're unknown, that because they don't travel and play, that are good players. I know there's like a guy named Jim, and he's always really tough. I've played him, I think, 3 times, and every time it's come down to the wire with him. But I don't think he really travels to play.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Not a lot of people do take the time to travel. In fact, we're organizing one of the smaller Winamap events to kind of qualify for Windsor, and some people won't take a half an hour to hit the next city, and some people are worried about the distance of travel. So I
Yeah,
understand there's a lot of players out there who can't get out there to all the events that they want to get to. Um, so
yeah.
and the,
I have to drive to play. I drive 30 minutes to play every time, minimum. So I get
yeah,
it.
myself and my wife for our weekly game to at the sorry our weekly events we go an hour and a half on the bus, which would be a half hour drive if we got a ride on the
Yeah.
occasional time. So we hear you on that. But where I want to go now, uh, tell us the tale, if you will, of the regionals. How was the experience? Tell us what it was like playing in day one and day two, and how the whole thing kind of came together. Highlights, lowlights, that kind of thing.
Um, I guess where do I start? Um, I guess I'll just start looking at it as a whole. There was a large amount of players there. Obviously, there was 80 players in the main event and over 40 in the co-main. In the main event, I mean, first off, it was run really smoothly. There was no like lag time issues. I know Pat doesn't have a huge crew when he runs it, but this one was by far the most smoothly ran event. That's a large event that I've been to, and so that helps make it a lot of fun. But I went with a couple friends, and met some new people and had a lot of fun. There was very few those really dinky moments there that I saw. None that really happened in my games. I was sitting next to one of the few that happened, but um, I think everybody there for the most part really tried to have a good time, and it's a board game. Let's keep that in mind. But yeah, I had a minute to for the main event to walk around and check out the floor because I won a qualifying event. Pat does a feeder events into his event, and so because I won that, I had a first round bye and an automatic win. So I walked around a little bit and checked out the field. Got to see a decent amount of what was being played and watch a few of the more intriguing matches that I thought were intriguing. And I was surprised by what I saw. I know we've been seeing a lot of like Proxima Midnight and things like that running all over the place in ROC. Um, and there was I think four 4 proximate midnights I saw in the whole event.
Wow.
And that includes Rob's and Patricia's. And Patricia didn't play day one because she auto qualified for day two. She used her ROC win, her Super Q win in Vancouver or
Yep.
Langley or wherever it was.
It
Uh,
was Langley, BC.
yeah. So yeah, she used that win to auto qualify for the regional because I guess she's not going to Atlanta or not planning to.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's really only 3 in day one. Um, I saw a decent amount of Highfather, who I thought would probably start showing up sometime soon since we've been seeing kind of these tanky figures, a lot of Kyle Rayner and things like that. Which there was a lot of Kyle Rayner there. Of the higher point figures, like 150 plus, he was the majority of what I saw. Um, I saw a surprising amount of this guy, Super Scroll. Um,
I'd hope you've seen a lot of them and you were piloting them.
yeah, I I expected to see some. Um, there must have been at least 12, which
Yikes.
considering he's a chase is pretty. That's a lot,
That's a lot for a chase to show up.
Right, and a rare chase because there's 8 different chases and you only get one per case. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, my teammate Ray actually bought his that he used that morning.
Wow.
I wasn't even gonna play Super Scroll. He was gonna borrow mine, but the vendor that was there had one for sale for $45, and so he just bought it right then and there. Um, because of that, I was able to use my Super Scroll. And since I was able to use it and he spent the money, I gave him a black and white battery pack for that. You know, 'cause otherwise I probably wouldn't have won the event. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I see. I have a breakdown. Let me bring it up of my matchups here.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, I had a buy round one. I kind of walked around, saw a lot. I saw a few copycat teams. But the probably the most used figure outside of um, Kyle Rayner and Super Scroll was probably Despitalis and Bizarro. Those were the 2 figures that were on a majority of teams. I know round 2 I played against a 9 token Bizarro.
Wow.
Um, yeah, which is important to note that this event did not go by the new watch list erratas
Yep.
because they were released so close to the event. I think it was the week of or the week before.
Yeah, the Wednesday of or the Wednesday of the event they announced the watch list and the event happened on the Saturday and Patrick put up a post on HC Realm saying it's too late, we can't. I think he
Yeah,
put it up on the Saturday before, so and
he
if the
had
watch list comes out,
He had posted it actually way back in I think the beginning of December that if it wasn't out by the first, they weren't using it. But
yeah.
yeah, he reaffirmed it. But yeah, my first game was against a 9 token Bizarro, Despitalis, and Headpool, and that sounds kind of scary, but it with the matchup, it really wasn't. I put him on Ryu, which is one of the 3 maps that I chose to bring with me. That's if you don't know, it's the 6 elevation map from War of Light Month 6. Uh, just because I figured that would kind of give him a little bit of trouble with his placement of the figures he's carrying, and he moved up, and I just went all in and did a hypersonic attack. I upped my attack by 1 with my blind owl, which I guess I should tell my team, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
if there's gonna be some players who aren't or some viewers who aren't familiar with what you played.
all right, so I don't know if you can see that Star Labs kit
You got it
edition.
there. Yep.
Um, Super Scroll, Zombie, Blind Owl, and Brother Voodoo. So yeah, I upped my attack with Blind Owl. Sidestep up a little bit with both Super Scroll and Star Labs tech because they both start with it. I chose Prob, Hypersonic, and Invincible with my Super Scroll, and then moved Brother Voodoo up for another Prob, and I went after his Despitalis on my first first turn or second turn. Um, I one shot his Despitalis. I hit the 8 that I needed, and then I brought his Despitalis back, and then from there I have Poison with Super Scroll, Brother Voodoo, and Despitalis, and the ability to choose Outwit with Super Scroll. And because Bizarre only has Impervious for a damage reducer, otherwise he's I think Combat Reflexes and Super Senses. So
Yeah.
so it was just poison, poison, poison every turn, and he never landed on his big high attack values, so he never could really get away from Despitalis or anything like that. So I wore him down really quickly with all the poison. It actually took me longer to take out his head pull than his Bizarro because I missed I think 3 or 4 attacks on his head pull.
Oh, that's always the worst. Is like I should be hitting this guy. Why am I not hitting him?
Well, like at that point I was like, okay, so game's over, and he's like, well, I still have head pull. And I was like, all right, fair enough. So
You did.
but yeah, we played it out. I wiped his team out. He got nothing. That was I don't know if the guy was new, but I had never seen him at from Team Vegas. His name is Josh. Um, he played. He's a super nice guy. In fact, right after our game, he friend requested me on Facebook. It's kind of funny. Um, but
I love this community sometimes.
Yeah, and I went out to Vegas late 2013, 2013, yeah, to play, and I didn't see him there, so I don't know if he's new or just new to the team or what, but yeah. Then my round three, I played against Matthew Esbrook, who's one of I think it's Four Corners Gaming or 4 Points, Four Corners, I think. It's him, Ed. What's the guy's name? Ed something. Gosh dang, I'm so bad with names. Ed, and then Scott Crampton. He's part of that crew, and he was running Shatterstar, Black Talon, Winter Soldier, the Sniper's Nest one, and One Token Bizarro and Jinx. And again, I won the map. Um, I sort of passed my first turn because there wasn't really anything I could do, and then I think no, yeah, and then he moved. He did some kind of moving around. I think he tried to mind control his Shatterstar and missed, or with Black Talon. No, he was going to, but he had positioned his Shatterstar next to Black Talon, so Black Talon would actually have to roll on the combat reflexes,
Yeah.
and so he did a little bit of repositioning, and then so then it went back to my turn, and I decided just to go all in on the Shatterstar. Up my damage to a 6. I figured 11 to 17. Now I need a 6. Move Brother Voodoo in for the perplex, or not perplex, the prob, and I missed the Shatterstar totally and completely missed him.
Mm.
Because my thought was I'll kill Shatterstar, bring him back. He's based with his whole team. Maybe he can cause some havoc. But I missed, and I mean that was all my moves for the turn. So then he comes charging in with Shatterstar, and I hit the scroll roll, the scroll shape change.
Of all the
And,
shape changes, the 1 in 6 chance.
yeah, the 1 in 6 chance I hit it, and seeing Matt's face was just like, well, all right then. And luckily for me, his Bizarro was stuck on sidestep, so he had no charge or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, he also had missed his mind control again, or he had missed his mind control of Black Talon. So that was another big dice roll in my favor. So the next turn, I got a poison off on his Shatterstar. That gives me 1 food and 1 virus token, and then I just killed his Shatterstar. I sidestepped back and shot him with a 5 damage and killed him. Brought him back, and then I just kind of went to work gradually on his team. He missed all of his super senses with Jinx. Um, Bizarro, I just went with Precision Strike, I think, to make sure that the hit went through. And yeah, I got a couple poisons in. But once I took out Shatterstar and Bizarro, I mean, really his only attacker left was Winter Soldier and Black Talon. But with his Winter Soldier, he had placed 3 sniper nests, and he put one towards his starting area, which when you run next to him, they go away, and he has to move. Well, depending on the dice roll, but they went away, and he had to move. And then he put one in the middle of the map and one in my starting area. And so this game actually was a lot closer than it could have been because I could have just left him in the sniper's nest in my starting area, but for some reason I used blind owl to kick him out, and so then that knocked him on the running shot and stuff. So he's actually able to kill my blind owl, my Starlabs tech, but I eventually wore him down. Um, Round four, I played one of the Bakersfield guys. He ran Thane, Dark Phoenix, and Blue Lantern Recruit. And so I immediately, after a couple of rounds of positioning, I was able to get a single shot pulse wave off on his Dark Phoenix and um, knock her pretty far down, and then finish her off the next turn. Um, Brought her back, and he had no moving attack after that. So, and I had two running shot pulse wavers because I used support. I pushed the tech, the Starlabs tech to support, supported up Dark Phoenix to the top dial,
Oh.
and then went after his mentor. So that game went pretty quickly. So at that point, I was 4-0. I was feeling pretty good. Um, I knew that the matchups would only get tougher, but at that point, I figured I'm probably already in the top 16. I'll just win my next one or one of my next two and be fine. But then round five, I played against Kevin Afruz, who was also running Super Scroll, and he was running his support for it was Maximus, Despitalis, one token Bizarro, and he sidelined the Alpha Primitives, which Maximus can bring in. Which that was a great tech. I wish I'd have thought of it, to be honest with you. If I couldn't run the Brother Voodoo on my team, that's probably what I would run next time. But that game went back and forth. Again, I went after Despitalis right in the beginning, and then Kevin rolled a crit miss with his Bizarro and killed his own Bizarro. So that, that was fortunate. I hit Maximus. I killed one of his Alpha Primitives, so I was pretty far up in points. We were coming down to time. He had no points on me yet. But both of our Super Scrolls were kind of far down on their dials. His was on his last click, and mine was on his second to last click. And so at that point, I could have probably just ran away and been fine, but I decided to be overly aggressive and go after Maximus. And when I did that, I set myself up for a pulse wave, and Kevin rolled a critical hit. So that actually KO'd my Super Scroll and his Despitalis. And that was literally the last turn of the game because we had gone to time.
Yep.
And so I lost in the last action on my own accord. Should have just ran away. I'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's one of those weird things. You get into those games, you look back and say, if I would have just ran away, I would have been fine. And then for
Yeah.
some reason, it didn't stick in your head to just get the hell out of there. You have the lead, right?
Right. Yeah. It's dumb. I play like that all the time here at home too. There was a couple War of Light events where, I was 2-0 going to the last round or whatever, and I just, I don't know, go after the big guy. I'm like, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna take this guy out, and then I end up losing. So who knows? Um, Against my better judgment. Um, so then I was 4-1. Round six, I played against Will Gordon from Team Ragnarok, and he ran Thane, Captain Marvel Prime, and Trinity of Sin Question.
Ooh,
And
I like
yeah,
that.
that's a nasty team. When I sat down from him, and I knew going into it that Thane was one of the tougher matchups
Hmm.
um, for Super Scroll because he has that Pulse Wave as a trait, so there's not really like any playing around it. He just gets it.
And it's
Um,
free action pulse wave too.
yeah, I forgot that. Um, so yeah, I went up and I hit his Captain Marvel Prime off of that defend because he a defend with +1, and then he has two perplexes from question. I'm having to roll 20s all day, and I didn't really want to have to do that. and so I went after him right away. But I knocked him onto his pulse wave click. Um, his thing came up and got a shot off on me. I had invincible. I took 2 damage. And then he pulse waved a single target and hit me, and then he flurried me with question, charge flurry, and then pulse wave and finished off my super scroll in one epic turn. And I just had forgot that that pulse wave was a free action. I probably wouldn't have positioned that way.
Yeah.
Um, but what can you do? I managed to kill his question and his Marvel with my brother Voodoo, but his Thane was able to wipe out the rest of my support um, before, so he was just a little bit up on points, and at that point he just ran away with his Thane, and there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
Um, and that was it, 4-2, but I snuck in the top 16. Um,
Now,
I,
I want to take a second because Majestix runs things slightly differently. Um, most events, how you score in the game would determine how you place as far as the tiebreakers with other 4-2s. At Majestix, they ran a strength of schedule, which, for those unfamiliar, strength of schedule is generally based on the performance of your opponents. So if your opponents were doing well, then your tiebreaker is higher, whereas if the opponents that you played and beat aren't doing so well, then your tiebreaker kind of goes down.
yeah.
Now, I want to ask your opinion on this before we get into the day 2 portion.
hmm
Uh, how, how did that work for you? Were you comfortable with it? Did you understand it going in, and did it factor into how you were playing?
Um, so this is, I think, the fourth time I played at Majestics. Um, So I play Magic, and Magic uses strength of schedule for their
Right.
events. Not that I play a lot or I'm exceptionally good, but that's how they do it. So I was pretty comfortable with the system, but also know that losing early is really bad in strength of schedule. So like if you lose in round 1 or 2, you're probably gonna have a really hard time making the top cut if it's anything less than like 32 players. Being that my first loss occurred in round 5, um, that was pretty favorable for me. Um, and then the people that I lost to ended up being 6-0 and 5-1. So Kevin was the only 6-0. So he would have. Um, I felt fine that I was gonna make. I had a pretty good chance at it. That being said, I did have like 1,400 points scored up because most of my games were pretty one-sided, and even the ones I lost, I wiped out over half their force. Um, so I think point-wise, I don't know if I'd have been top 16, but I would have still been pretty up there. Um, yeah, I feel fine with strength of schedule. I think it does put more pressure on you to win early though. And if you lose early, it's kind of like, okay, I can't lose another one, you know.
Yeah. Okay. And as well, did you happen to compete in the co-main event, the one that did involve tactics, or?
So no, I had a team. It was the same team that Jake Williams ran, which was Silver Centurion, Despotalis with Adara, and Parallax on Silver Centurion, 2 worker spiders in the yellow battery. Um, so we were both gonna run the same team. I ran a very similar team while back at Majestix at the end of 2013, maybe 2014. I don't know, the beginning of 2014. But at, after the main event qualifier, I had a really bad migraine,
Okay.
and it was kind of the lighting wasn't the best. Not that it was horrible, but I'm supposed to wear glasses and I don't. So yeah, I had a pretty bad migraine by the end of the day. So I didn't compete in that, but I did observe quite a bit of it, actually all of it. But
Okay. And also on day one, you said you got a chance to look through other people's teams during your bye round. Did any
Mhm.
teams kind of stand out as what the heck is going on, or were a lot of them teams you had to look at and go, what is that doing? Anything stand out as really weird to you as well?
Um, I think not, and not. I'm not saying this to brag, but I think one thing that I'm good at is looking at a team and just kind of knowing how it works. Um, and so I don't think anything that I saw really was like, what? I don't get it. But there were a few teams where I was like, oh, that's a really interesting choice. If you look, Jake Williams was 4-2 in the qualifier, and his team was like Gates, Rainbow Raider, Despitalis, Harley Quinn. Um, I want to say Bizarro, but I
Yeah,
don't
it was
remember.
Bizarro.
So it was kind of like just like a mobile tank. You just Gates carries your whole team, and then you just deal damage. I think early on Jake made a misplay, and his opponent was able to capitalize on it, and that cost him his first loss in round two. And because he lost that match, he had a really hard time recovering. Even though he was 4-2, I think he finished somewhere like 40th or something like that.
Ouch.
Yeah, which there, I mean, you gotta understand, out of a field of 80 players, there's a lot of 4-2s. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot. Um, and and again, that's one of those strength of schedule things. He lost early, um, and then he won his last three straight. But the problem with that is the guy he lost to probably went and lost his next few matches, and because of that, he didn't have a strong tiebreaker schedule.
Yeah.
So there was that team. I saw a couple copycat teams, and like I remember, there's a guy Tyler Van Orman was playing some sort of copycat team with Shatterstar and stuff. Um, and his first round he played against Clay Wood, who was I think placed third or fourth. I beat him in the semifinals, and he went ahead and stole Clay's Abin Sur Prime, I believe, with Copycat, and then Clay just chose Regeneration with Super Scroll and Regen Copycat, and then just beat up Copycat with Super Scroll after that. So that I mean, there were some teams where it's like they were good teams, and Tyler is I mean, he was top eight at Majestix ROC, not the last one they did in WonderCon, but the end of the one they did at 2013 in December. He was top eight there, so it's not like it just shows you one of those things where like you can bring a team and it can be a good team, but if you make one mistake or maybe you misplay the team as a whole, you're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah.
Um, I did see a lot of Rainbow Raider though. I figured it was everywhere. That and
Yeah.
Harley Quinn.
The more and more I keep hearing people say people are playing Rainbow Raider, the more and more I have to go back to a video I said. It's like, I don't think he's going to make a splash in the meta, and eat my bloody words.
You're not the only one.
Yeah. I, at the same time, a lot of the teams that I've seen with him have been in conjunction, I think, with Mentor, and like the first time I saw him hit the hit play was Mentor Copycat, or not Copycat, Mentor Captain Marvel and him, and that was a team that was like very specifically saying "F you" to Proxima Midnight.
Yeah, I remember that team. We went over that in my show. Yeah, it wasn't anything like was it what was that last ROC that had? I mean, there was one ROC recently that just had a lot of really wonky teams, and I was like, whoa, you
Yeah,
know,
I want
it,
to like. There's some local metas, and you're just like, "What are you guys playing?"
yeah. Why did you play that figure? But you don't know what to expect, I
Yeah.
guess.
So let's take it to day two now. You're in the. They cut to 16, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. They cut to 16. I got matched up against Ryan Roberts, who is a former Majestix Super Q winner. Um, and he just missed the top 32 at Worlds 2014, I remember. Um, he was running Kyle Rayner with I believe, a wall. I think he started with a wall. Bizarro out with one token, 50-point Harley Quinn and Despitalis. And right off the bat, Super Scroll has a tough matchup against Kyle Rayner, because Kyle Rayner is more points than Super Scroll. So a lot of times what it's going to come down to is killing the support. Um,
Right.
and he has less points in support than I do. So if he kills all of my support and I don't kill his Kyle Rayner, I'm going to lose. Um, that being said, he put us on the Pacific Ocean map, um, which is horrible for Super Scroll because now I'm horribly outranged. And
Does he not
uh,
fly?
Super Scroll flies,
Okay. I'm not 100%
but
familiar with the
he
figure
only
set.
has a 6 range.
Yeah,
Kyle Rayner's got 9.
and it's a wide open map, that one.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's like a little bit of blocking in the starting, like by the starting areas, which I really honestly used to my advantage, as much as I could. Um, but yeah, I made kind of a bonehead positioning in the beginning of the game, um, thinking the elevations were swapped, because it's elevation 2 on both ends and then 1 in the middle. And I don't know why, but in my head I was thinking the opposite. And so I moved up Brother Voodoo trying to mind control one of his figures. And then he's like, "You can't." And I was like, "Oh, you're right, I can't." So I just went ahead and shot his Bizarro with Super Scroll and got the hit in, and got him out of there because the less attackers he has, the better off I am.
Yep.
Um, then he made a really gutsy move and went +2 to damage because Kyle was Harley's pudding. He
Mm.
went +2 to damage and then goes after my brother Voodoo, and I'm like, oh, here we go. This is gonna be the match right here. But luckily for me, he missed. He missed his attack roll, or did I? He either missed or I hit super senses. I don't remember. But yeah, that was it. He missed that. I was able to kill Harley, and then I just kind of retreated. Kind of ran away. um, but sometimes you have to. That's how the matchup goes.
Yep.
Um, long story short, he ended up KOing my brother Voodoo and my blind owl. So then I was down on points, and we went down to last action, and I was able. I only had one chance, so my super scroll was on perplex with the 10 attack. So I chose I think hypersonic and prob, and I had the last turn because Ryan went first, and I ran up and I needed a 9 to hit his Despitalis, and I hit it on my second roll with my prob, killed his Despitalis. So I still had the Star Labs deck and the Super Scroll alive, so I just barely outpointed him for the win. Yeah, it was that was a really close game. Top 8, I played against Team Vegas guy. He's running Highfather, Engineer, and World's Finest, with on the Huntress dial. Of course he packed in my Super Scroll, and on paper that seems like a rough matchup, but with Brother Voodoo I really have a lot going for me because he can't really afford to leave Highfather alone.
Mhm.
So he has to have some kind of figure protecting him. Um, so he moved up his engineer a bit, and I basically mind controlled his engineer, to hit his Highfather, and
Yep.
then that broke the pact, and then my Super Scroll just cleaned up from there. It helps that he made an attack on my Super Scroll. It was +2 damage or +2 to all stats because of the Highfather supports,
Mhm.
and I think he just missed. Like he just missed his attack. Like he needed a 4 or something like that, or 5, and he rolled like a 3.
Yeah.
Um, and
Those
so
are.
yeah, those are rough. They're
Mhm.
tough to swallow. So I pretty much just cleaned up from there because there's no damage reducers on his World's Finest. I did get a free mind control, brought his World's Finest closer to get some poison before I shot on her, and then Engineer is really squishy with just toughness. So I just squished her, and then um, just beat up on High Father after that, and then moved on to the top four. Faced another Super Scroll matchup. Um, this time I won the map roll. Um, I just perplexed up my Super Scroll's defense and pass, and um, I think Clay he misunderstood the way the first round immunity works. He thought because I used perplex that all of my figures lost their first round immunity, but only Blind Owl did.
Mhm.
And so he was going to come across the map with Hypersonic and try and hit my brother Voodoo, I believe. Or no, my Super Scroll because I didn't choose any powers. And then because I reminded him before he did all that, so then um, I allowed him to choose different powers. Well, I mean, he asked, and I was like, that's fine. I wanted him to take back his telekinesis, but he said no. Well, I mean, being fair, that's just. But he said no, that was fine. He didn't need to. So what he ended up doing instead was bringing his Despotalis all the way across the map, and pretty much we just slugged each other back and forth in my starting area, and kept killing Blind Owl and popping each other's characters out of the starting area, and actually at one point turned over my team sheet and just started keeping track of points on it because I mean, it was going to get out of control really quickly. And then, both of our super scrolls were kind of down on their dials. Both were, I think, at 5 tokens. And I was able to get off a single target pulse wave on the super scroll and finish off the match in my last turn, which I needed to do because he was up on points.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't know if everybody knows, but if you pulse wave, the zombies don't get to come back.
Yeah, because that power is ignored and all effects are ignored. So
Right. I know some guys were playing Super Scroll and didn't know that.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I scraped by that one. So those are really, I know I lost to Kevin, but like I don't feel like that game was really close. Like I think if it had gone on, I probably still could have won that game. Um, whereas, my games with Ryan and Clay were really close. Clay, I probably still would have won, but I think in the long run, I think Ryan would have beat me if it was not a timed game. Because his Kyle Rayner was still top dial and my Super Scroll was pretty far down. Um, but it is a time game, so.
yeah,
Um, and then the finals, I played against Rob Berzel, and his main attacker on his team is Proxima Midnight, and I mean that's really his only attacker. I know he was running Jason Sparta, who can attack. Obviously, any character can attack, but you know, is not one of those characters you think of as an attacker. He was running Proxima Midnight Loki at 30 points, the kid Loki,
yep,
um, Despotalis, uh, what else was he running? Jason Sparta and Brother Voodoo. And so again, you know, Despotalis can really be an issue with against almost any team. Because even with Invincible, if you're double token, he can deal damage to you.
yeah,
And he's got a high defense, and he just follows you around everywhere. So um, again, in this match, I just went across. He moved up, and then I ran across the map and killed his Despotalis. Leaving my Super Scroll a little bit open, um, but it was okay because there was no way he was going to deal 7 clicks of damage to me in one turn and finish me off. Um, he was able to kill his own Despotalis with Proxima, because I brought Despotalis back. So I didn't get to use his Despotalis against him really.
right.
But that one opening move, it forced his hand a little bit to play a certain way. I feel maybe that's not true, but that's how I felt. And because then he was forced like blocking line of fire with Loki and things like that, and I was able to mind control his Proxima Midnight to kill his own Loki, and then I was able to get 3 damage in on his Proxima Midnight. I was able to kill his Jason of Sparta before he ever had his free action to protect his characters. But the one thing that he did do, and this is what really stands out to me, is he mind controlled my Super Scroll to choose powers, and so that puts 4 tokens on his card.
Hmm.
So now on my turn, I either have to not choose powers and hope I roll a 6, or just choose powers and take a damage no matter what.
Right.
And I wish I had thought of that myself because it would have made those Super Scroll mirror matches a lot easier. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But
It's one of those things you don't instinctively think about it because his ability adds a token to it, and you resolve that token at a later time.
right, and we had I guess dinner together Saturday night, and I could tell that Super Scroll was a figure he hadn't anticipated on playing against. But
Mm.
there was I think 5 in the top 16. Um, I have the breakdown, but yeah, he so I could tell he spent a lot of time figuring out what to do, and I even talking to him afterwards, he had said like, yeah, he spent some time trying to figure out, how he could deal with Super Scroll and would give him the best chance at winning. But he had missed some dice rolls in our game, and I had made some big rolls, and so there was a lot of things that just went my way, and it was already a favorable matchup. But I was able at one point to heal my Super Scroll with my Star Labs tech, which I don't think at first he realized that she has support. I pushed her to support, and because I remember him looking and going, "Does she have support?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, he made his face, but he didn't want to push his brother Voodoo, and his Proxima Midnight was too far back to shoot, and so you know I was able to get a support on my Super Scroll, and that was pretty big for my team, So then, yeah, I was able just to we went to time, and it was he still had his brother Voodoo standing, but I had my whole team still standing. So
Yeah,
that was a game.
that was it.
Yep.
So, it's an awesome story. It's great to hear that you played against a lot of teams, a lot
Yep.
of really good players too. Because based on the some of the names that you've dropped, Rob Barzul, Kevin Afruz, these are all names that are familiar in the community. So you didn't play against any players that are just like, oh, this guy's no good. And especially when you're winning on day one, you're playing against quality players.
Yeah.
So now I want to thank you for sharing that part, and I want to move on now because we're kind of getting a little short on the time. I kind of want to run only about an hour.
Sorry.
Um, no, it's okay. We're here to hear this story, and we're really interested in these kinds of things. So I want to thank you for keeping notes on the games too, so you could go for in depth. So I don't have to plug you for a lot of questions.
Right.
Um, but we're going to move on to our audience questions because we
Sure.
had a couple of questions asked on Facebook. Some of them you already covered, so I'm going to skip them over very quickly or glaze over them.
Uh-huh.
Now, I want to go with the first one, and this is from Shannon Higgins. He asks, in a World for Kyle Rayner teams, what was your strategy against him? So going in, you played against Kyle Rayner and you had to react to him different ways. Going in, where was your headspace about playing against Kyle Rayner?
Um, well, I mean, going into it, um, well, like I said before, I kind of made the team last minute. I had an idea of what I like to play, and but I also know I'm very comfortable with like Brother Voodoo. That's a figure I've used with success before. And if you listen to my show, I talk about Super Scroll all the time on there. I love the figure. So one thing about the Kyle Rayner matchup is that I know he's probably not going to kill Super Scroll. Um, not unless I hit him onto his God click, so to speak. Um, there's really no way he's going to kill my Super Scroll because he would have to get 2 attacks without me accruing some sort of food token, and that's probably not going to happen. That being said, the whole game plan against Kyle Rayner was just to kill his support and hope that Voodoo and Super Scroll live. I mean, I know that sounds kind of dumb, but um, I felt confident that my support was better than his. Um, if as long as I can kill his support, I'd be fine.
Oh,
Um, I mean, that's really it.
okay. Next question from Joshua Ernest. How aggressively did you play Super Scroll, and what kinds of figures slash teams would cause you to hesitate slash pick your shots?
Um, so stuff you really want to worry about is those figures that can hit you more than once in the turn. Like I talked about Thane. Thane has the ability. He could deal 6 damage to your Super Scroll in one turn, even if you have Invincible. If you're double tokened, he can go get off a shot, a Psychic Blast with 6 damage, and then deal, and that you'll take 3, and then single target Pulse Wave you, which would be the damage depletion modifier to another 3, but that's 6 damage from one guy. If you missed your emulation roll or pushed or something at some point, he can finish you literally by himself in one turn. Um, so figures like that really make you kind of think twice, except for me, because like I said in my matchup with Will, I forgot that Pulse Wave was a free action. I played it kind of dumb. Um, but that's what I get for not reading the card. Uh, but yeah, I played it very aggressively for the most part, and I think I covered that because most of the time it was just I'm gonna go across the map and kill something and get a food token, get some points, and bring a dude back to harass your team with. I think the only match I didn't really play aggressively um, was against maybe two was against Ryan and Clay, and Clay really brought the fight to me. Like I said, we were stuck fighting in my starting zone most of the match, and that I mean it's on film. You'll see it later probably. Um, and then Ryan, like I said, I just KO, but that was the Kyle Rayner matchup. So and that was the only one I played against. So I just kind of KO'd his support and stayed away as best I could.
Okay. Next question. We have Dan Upham, the guy who's actually running the Windsor Super Q. After going 4-2, how were you able to regroup and focus to clean out some of the really tough competition? And how did those 2 Swiss losses help you in elimination?
Um, so this sounds kind of funny, and I don't. Pat Yapoko, who was running the event, he wrote an article, and if you follow HC Realms and things like that, you probably read it, talking about the voices from the field and his predicted top 16. And it was kind of funny because I read it, and he talked about me and my team a little bit in there, but I wasn't predicted to be top 16, and my buddy Frank was. Um, and it was the opposite. Ray and I made it, and Frank and Jake did not, and so that was opposite. So I had already done better than I expected to. I was supposed to, and so I just kind of went into the whole event, and not just the top 16, with the mindset that I'm just gonna make top 16 and have fun, and whatever happens happens, and that I'm not supposed to do anything. So it really took all the pressure off of me. But that being said, the losses on day one, like the loss against Kevin, really made me double think about it. Like, okay, sometimes I can't just be aggressive. Locally I play really aggressive sometimes, and it costs me games. And if I want to win in the high level, I can't do that. And my loss against Will, just showed me like, I need to I need to read the cards and make sure everything my opponent's characters can do. And there was before I even started with Rob in the finals, I spent like 5 minutes reading Jason Sparta's card and talking with him how it worked. So
Okay. And then the next one we have here, we actually have 2 from Jeff Bozeman. First one, how important of a factor did map choice come into play during your matches? And what maps did you play on that seemed to be an advantage for you and a disadvantage for your opponent? Is the first question.
yeah, Jeff's a regular on my podcast with questions, but yeah, map choice is a big part of the game. Um, I normally don't pay too much attention to it, but because I only play like once or twice a month usually, and they're for the OP events. So you just kind of show up and it's like, okay, this is the map you guys are playing on today,
Right.
right? Um, so the night before, I kind of looked at maps and I thought, okay, if there's a team that doesn't have a lot of mobility, I'll choose the Thunderbolt submarine, and because Voodoo can phase through walls, and Super Scroll can use the walls to hide behind after hypersonic, um, which never came to as a factor. Um, if there was a close combat team, I had the Legionnaire Plaza, um, that would allow me to shoot at their figures from a decent range and not have to worry too much about him, retaliating before in a way that I don't want him to. And then against like other matchups, like I brought the Ryute map with me, and that was to really kind of mess with those, like the team I talked about, Jake ran, where he can carry 6 characters or whatever it is, 5 characters. Um, those kinds of teams or teams that relied on their TK and long range. Um, that was my whole plan. Like if I played Kyle Rayner, my plan was to put him on the Ryute. But when I did play him, um, Ryan won macro and put me on Pacific Ocean, so that put me at a disadvantage. So.
Okay. And then his next question. Can you let us know of a moment in one of your games, if you had any, where you were in need of some good fortune on your part? I can already think of one you mentioned.
Yeah, when I played Rob, it was like every dice roll I needed good fortune,
Uh-oh.
because yeah. Oh, this is my girlfriend. Hello.
Oh, and you're back. All right,
Okay.
excellent.
Sorry.
When you played against Rob is where we lost you.
Yeah, when I played against Rob, it was like every dice roll. Like I think I even said like I need this one. I need this one. I I just remember saying that like 3 or 4 times in the match. Because his brother Voodoo was harassing my super scroll, and then I couldn't push and things like that because I'd just be taking too much damage. So I needed him to miss every once in a
All right.
while. But yeah, the game against Kevin, that would have been a nice nice time for him to crit miss with his super scroll.
All right. And the last question we have is from Diego Bermudez. I hope I said your name right. Uh, who was your toughest opponent in that tournament?
Um, Honestly, there were 3. It was probably Ryan, Clay, and Rob. Even though my match against Rob was kind of a blowout, um, as far as points go, he really kept me on my toes, and I had to think really hard about my moves and stuff. And um, I'm sure there's things that he could have done differently to better his chances of winning. But I felt like he played a really amazing game. Um, Same thing with Clay. When I played Clay, he definitely had a chance to single target pulse wave my super scroll, and he just didn't see it. And had he seen it, he would have beat me, and I would have just lost. And then, like I said, my game with Ryan just came down to I needed a 9. Um, so I can't knock that. Ryan's a good player.
All right. Well, and that's all we have for the questions, all we have from the audience. So I want to say, Aaron, thank you very much for joining us on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's great to hear from the mind of somebody who's done very well in the tournament and worked really hard to get there.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
is there any parting words you want to leave us? Throw in a little plug for your show while you're at it, too.
Yeah, I just, thanks for having me on, first off. And second, go ahead and listen to my show and keep following Married with Clicks. You guys are awesome. You guys put out a lot of content. Um, Especially Amber does her rules and stuff like that, which is really cool and helpful to new players. But yeah, on if you have a chance, check out 2 Clicks from KO. Spell out everything except for KO because it's just KO. We're on Facebook. We're on iTunes. We go through Podbean. Um, and then you can find us on um, any of the iTunes emulators on Android. I want to say thanks to Pat for running the event. Thanks to Frank and Ray, my teammates, for pushing me towards the Super Scroll and you know paying for my hotel while I was there. I bummed it up all weekend, and yeah, I think that's it. Oh, if you guys have a chance, if you're in California or nearby, come down to Tulare, California, March 7th and 8th at the Tulare Sci-Fi Con. It's a fundraiser for the local library there, and we will be having a super queue. Um, Last year we had 24 players, and I think every single person walked out with something. I'm not guaranteed that's going to happen, but Frank, the guy running it, does put out a lot of prize support, and it'll definitely be worth you guys' while if you can make it.
Excellent. All right. Thank you once again, Aaron, for joining us. And I want to say thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you guys next week with another champion. I have no word on who it is yet, but we'll keep you up to date. In the meantime, have a good week. And remember, guys, practice makes your team better.